Hello, everybody, and welcome to the OSU Roundup. Robert Allen filling in for Dave Hunziker, who has been on the road a bunch lately with basketball, football, and everything else that's going on. Dave will be back in the seat because I know we'll have Coach Boynton coming up in future weeks talking basketball, but we're wrapping up the 2018 regular season in football with the Cowboys head coach, Mike Gundy. And let's start on not necessarily the most pleasant of notes, but the way the team finished out. You finished up at TCU over the Thanksgiving weekend, and I know first time I traveled with the team this year, and I felt they were ready, and it just didn't turn out that way.
It's been an interesting year in the fact that our preparation has been good throughout the year. I can't say that I've ever been around a team that can play so well one week and the next week just play really flat in different areas for a variety of reasons. Taylor really struggled in the first half throwing the ball, had some issues setting his feet. Moved him a lot, which created some inconsistencies. We did not run block very well at all. In fact, it looked like we were back at week 4 or 5 in our run blocking concepts. Coach Patterson does a nice job, but there was as much of it that was all our fault than what he created for us. Chuba didn't have a particularly great game, missed some cuts, dropped some passes, different things. So it was an unusual game. Defensively, played really well up until, I guess it was early part of the third quarter when we gave a long run up. But we put them on the field so many times that it should have got us into the middle of the fourth quarter before that happened. The first half, we just kept putting them back on the field. It's a very unusual season. I'm excited about having another game, which we talked about afterwards. I'm looking forward to getting back to practice in a week, working on some fundamentals and just different things. But if I was in Vegas drawing lines on us, I don't know that I wouldn't just throw us off the chart because I don't have any idea, and I don't know if anybody else does, of how to predict how our players will play each week based on we've played top 10 talent and stood toe-to-toe with them. And then we've played teams that are barely 500 and didn't play well enough to win, lost those games. So an unusual season, but people ask all the time, how you doing? Well, I'm doing great because I'm excited about getting back out there. Go coach some base fundamentals in all 3 phases and get ready to travel somewhere with the team and play another game.
Yeah, and when you look at it, Coach Gundy said that's very correct. This team was 3-1 as an underdog this season. So when they took on the best of opponents, they were very much at their best, and then 3-5 as the favorite. So that is confounding.
Yeah, well, and then the one game we lost was to Oklahoma,
right.
A 1-point loss that if we make our kicks, we probably win that game. So you're essentially right sitting there at 4-0, and when you're an underdog, and we talked about that as a staff and as a team, and my message to them last week was let's see if we can three-peat. Let's play 3 good games in a row. We haven't done that yet, and we didn't do it. We went to 2 was our max this year, so we got to get them back and rally and get them ready for the bowl game.
All right, and that was just a piece. That was just one chapter in what was a 13th straight bowl season for Mike Gundy and the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Again, a school record that keeps growing. We're going to talk about the setup for that. We're going to talk a little bit about the bowl practices that Coach Gundy mentioned. We're going to review the season for you as we continue here on the OSU Roundup.
The OSU Roundup is brought to you by Bud Light, game day's favorite light lager. By the visitstillwaterok.org Shop, Dine, and Stay partners. Be sure to shop, dine, and stay in America's friendliest college town. By Mercy Health, your life is our life's work. And by OG&E, power at the speed of life.
Hi, I'm Coach Gundy with Oklahoma State University. With approximately 900 Oklahomans waiting for a life-saving transplant, I encourage everyone across the state to make the important decision to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor. So check your driver's license for the Little Red Heart. If it's not there, visit lifeshareok.org and join the registry today. I have the Little Red Heart. Do you?
Welcome back to the Cowboy Roundup. Mike Gundy with us as we take a look at the 2018 Oklahoma State football season. Robert Allen filling in for Dave Hunziker, who is normally in this chair. And, Coach, when we go back, I can go all the way back to, Rob Glass's workouts, the workouts with the kids this summer into fall camp. And I know that while a lot of people, because of the players who were gone, the Rudolphs, the Washingtons, the Lundblades, the Whiteners, a lot of people's expectations on the Cowboys were down, but I sure like the way this team worked going into the season.
Like I said earlier in the show, it's been an interesting year, but for me as a coach, and I've done it so long now, as long as the players are in tune and working hard and trying to get better each day in practice in preparation for the games and playing hard, then it's easy for me to continue with what I do. There's been years in my past where we've had teams that didn't practice as hard. I didn't feel good about it. I didn't think they played hard on Saturdays. Much more difficult to swallow. So we have quality young people in the program. For Taylor, he's had up and down year, but for the most part, when you look at his numbers, he's had a really good year. People are just comparing him to what we've had here the last 3 years, and it's difficult to do that. So I've been proud of the way he played. The offensive line never lived up to what I thought it would be preseason. Mm-hmm. Part of that is because we played musical chairs. You can't move a left tackle to right tackle and then to left tackle and then move a guard and then a center be out and then that left tackle be out and then move another guy in. The consistency on the offensive line is very important. We haven't had that all year, right up till the end. We ended up being able to play 72 at center in the last game, but he practiced a little bit Wednesday and Thursday, and we didn't really have that continuity, and he was able to get in there and do some. So that's the one area that we never got to where it should be based on a lot of different things. And then, of course, with Justice getting hurt and then J.D. deciding that he wanted to play somewhere else, Chuba came in and played well. LD got a few reps, but Chuba got a little bit of the freshman bug at TCU, and that kind of factored in. And then defensively, as you look at where we got hurt some in the latter part of the year was some in the running game, and we didn't have Darian in there, and it's tough to take a 325-pounder out with experience. And then, so secondary-wise, I thought we got better, and even in the TCU game, for the most part, we covered well. They hit a couple passes. When things don't go well for you in games, they scramble and throw one up and recover, and the guy reaches up and makes a catch. But for the most part, we improved in our coverage ability throughout the season. And we really tackled better. In the TCU game, Bundage got out of control again. It drives me crazy, and grabbed a face mask, and he was in terrible position. And we coached it like crazy, and he still did it. But overall, looking forward to getting back out there, as I said, and getting some things ready for the next game.
Some of the high points, and folks around Stillwater and around the Oklahoma State program all off season and through the summer pointed at that last non-conference game. Boise, who has got a magical name in college football, blue turf, really great program. And that was a battle of nationally ranked teams. That was a big Saturday in Stillwater.
Oh, it was, and Boise's a good team. I think they lost one other game.
In the conference championship.
Yeah, and they lost San Diego State, who's a good team. San Diego State's one of those teams that if you don't play well, they can beat you with. Right. I can't remember the guy's name. I got a lot of respect for
Rocky Long?
Yeah, he's been coaching for 100 years and been running. He really was the 3-3 defense guy. 25 years ago he was doing that. And he does a great job there. They lost to them, I think, 19-16 or something like that. Other than that, they win all their games. And Utah State was 10-1, and they beat Utah State the other night. So that was a good win for us. And what that did is that
raised expectations.
Yeah, that kind of got everybody maybe a little bit ahead of where they should have been, and based on knowing what we knew. Okay, right. And so. It's interesting how that happens, but I think when you look at it, Robert, we've talked about this before, because obviously I lay in bed or when I'm driving in the car or in the shower, the thing I think about is all the things that happen all the time and how to make it better. And the one common denominator is if you have a game breaker at an offensive position, and then you have a quarterback that's experienced that can oversee that production, then you have a chance to be very successful. If you're deficient in one of those areas, then you tend to not play as well during certain weeks. And the best example of that is we had 2 or 3 game breakers the last couple years. And then we had Mason, who was a pretty good college quarterback. So if things went wrong, they could always fix it at some point during the game. And Taylor was learning on the run this year. And then we had Wallace, and then Tyron and Stoner and them kind of came on as the year went on, but they were kind of getting their feet wet, and then you go all the way back to an experienced player like McCleskey leaving, and that's a guy that you could trust to be in the right place all the time. Mm-hmm. And when he left, we lost a lot of maturity at that position. So there's a lot of things that factor into it, but the consistency of the key positions where guys can make it happen gives you the best chance over a 12-game season.
Well, we're going to take a time out and come back. We'll hit some of the high points in the conference season. One of those was the return of Barry Sanders for homecoming, and I still love those uniforms. It wouldn't bother me if those things got worn again. It's what you played in. We'll come back and talk a little bit about that, and we'll also hit on the bowl practices Coach Gundy knows are so valuable and talked about in our first segment. Stay with us. Kind of wrapping up the season as we look forward to the Cowboys Bowl destination. And, of course, I'm filling in, Robert Allen, for Dave Hunziker. And you're going to be talking a lot more Cowboy basketball and some of the other sports coming up in the Cowboy Roundup here real soon. Coach, real quickly on the conference season, and I know there were some backward steps, but I always look at how a team responds to adversity. And they had a couple of times against really good teams. Texas here with a lot of pressure when Barry Sanders is back watching, and it's homecoming. And then also the West Virginia game. Those 2 games, those are the memories I'll take away from this senior class this year.
Well, no doubt. Those were top 10 teams, and with Barry coming back and all the former players in the old uniforms and his 30-year reunion, there was a lot of pressure on everybody. And then you have Texas rolling into town. You got as good a players as anybody in the country. So the guys played great, and that was one of the games that Taylor was right on his game. Mm-hmm. And so it made a big difference. And then, of course, you come in with West Virginia, that is a team that beat Texas and had played at the highest level, in my opinion, of anybody in this league. Now, they had a bad day at Iowa State, okay? And we all know that that can happen up there. And sometimes, even though you have a really good team, just like you look across the country, Ohio State got blown out by Purdue. I think it was Purdue. You can see different teams. Clemson usually gets it once a year. So West Virginia had played at the highest level. There wasn't really anybody in the game with them until Texas. And then when they came in here, we played about as good a game as you could play from the second half on and won the game. And again, quarterback played really well. Defense defended the deep ball really well.
May have been the best half of defense that second half against West Virginia.
Sure, no doubt. Defended a good offense. An offense that played a week later or whenever against Oklahoma and scored 56 points, however many points they scored. So it was good, and those are the things that you remember and you stick with as you're building for the future.
All right, when we come back, we'll look ahead to the bowl season. The Cowboys are going bowling for the 13th straight year, school record under Coach Gundy, and those bowl practices. You get 15. He always says 14 is about what he uses. We'll talk about what he wants to get done in those practices when we come back. 13th straight bowl game. I could come out with all my rumors. I've talked to a lot of people in the bowl community. I think I know where we're going. But sometimes where you're going is not as important. In fact, never is it as important as what you do with these extra practices. You've got a lot of young players. I know you've got you're going to have a different quarterback next year for sure. Mm-hmm. How much do these bowl practices not set the stage and prepare you as much for the bowl game, but also they coincide to prepare you for next year in spring practice?
The one concern of not getting in a bowl is you lose a spring practice.
Yeah.
And we're going to get 12 to 14 practices depending on where we go. There's 2 or 3 options. One of them, is right a little bit after Christmas, and the other one is late in the month. So either way, it should be fairly consistent that we're going to get 12 to 14 good practices. That's a spring ball, as you know, because in the spring, 3 of them are in shorts.
Right.
One of them's a spring game,
Right.
which I think that's fading anyway. I don't know that we'll have many spring games anymore. But regardless, you're talking about really 10 or 11 practices in the spring. Well, you get 12 or 14 in bowl season. That's an entire spring practice. And we will work more this year with the young players that we have than we have before, just on base fundamentals and trying to get them developed for the start of spring football.
You've got a lot of talent coming back, Chuba, Tylen. Those are game-breaking potential players. There's some younger players behind them that I can see developing. We talked about the quarterback. Spencer Sanders was a guy in last year's recruiting class. And, a lot of people don't realize Jamil Jeter's a running back that your old coach saw back in fall camp. And Pat Jones there's a Jeter kid. I mean, he was in love with him. So there is a lot. And I think the offensive line with a lot of their young guys, that's going to get better.
Sure.
Defense, you played some of those young guys like Peel and Bernard.
Yeah, and the good news is everybody knows about those positions, but where I'm excited is on the offensive side is you have Dylan Galloway, who we thought it was ways away. He's playing pretty good.
Yeah.
And he didn't get to lift last year. He missed 9 months with a surgery. So we'd like to finish him out healthy and let him lift for 9 months. And then he's coming back. And then you have your center back, and you have your other tackle back. And then you have the guys behind him that have worked. Hambright's back. We really haven't seen him do much in 6 weeks. And he was a guy that was
Rye can play a little bit too when he filled in for John.
You've got Rye there, and you've got the young players. So I was excited last year, and it didn't pan out based on injuries and different things. Musical chair injuries, not just injuries. Moving guys around. It's not good for offensive line. Should be in the same situation next year where we can keep guys consistent, and that's the base. We got to be able to run the football, and that allows us to throw it down the field. Got every wideout back. Got everybody back. So that consistency is going to be there no matter who the quarterback is.
Well, the Cowboys will know soon where the Cowboys are going bowling, who the opponent will be, and as Mike Gundy mentioned, after a week, coaches are on the road recruiting, so that's important as well. But we'll all find out next weekend, and we'll also find out what the Cowboys are doing as far as recruiting coming up on December 19th when the early signing day comes up. So a lot to be excited for as we head toward the Christmas season. Early Merry Christmas to you and your family. Goodbye, everybody.
The OSU Roundup is brought to you by Bud Light, game day's favorite light lager. By the visitstillwaterok.org Shop, Dine, and Stay partners. Be sure to shop, dine, and stay in America's friendliest college town. By Mercy Health, your life is our life's work. And by OG&E, power at the speed of life.